Here you go, the first look of our Docker Manager desktop application that we built with Rust and React. So as you can see, we have our containers, images, navbar UI, and we have our containers which are in any of the state right now on my machine, either killed or stopped. We have our images. Now let's say I want to remove ARM64 v8 MySQL latest, and I press remove, and there you go, the image is gone. Similarly, let's say I want to run this Amazon image. I press run, and as you can see, there is this container which started like 9 seconds ago, but the logs for this Nginx log generator, I click this, and there you go, our logs UI, nice and clean terminal UI as I told you guys. Hello guys, in this video we'll build our own Docker desktop app with Tauri using Rust. We'll use React for frontend, and we'll use Tauri commands and channels to add our Docker commands like Docker PS, Docker images, or start a new container, stop a container, run a container, remove a container, kill a container, or remove any images, or different other commands to check even the logs of our containers. So without further ado, let's begin and let's dive into it. As we start, there is a link to my Discord in description. We do tons of discussions there and I share lots of tips and tricks, so make sure you join it. Now, first of all, let's add our project structure. So move to the project explorer, make sure you're in a clean directory, open the terminal, and as always in my videos, I'll be using Yarn as a package manager. There is an installation link in the description. So if you don't have Yarn installed on your machine, just go ahead and install. And we'll just do yarn create Tauri app, and here we'll provide the name for our app. So let's say I'll name my app as Docker app, and we'll just do com.dockerapp.app, and we'll use for front-end TypeScript and JavaScript, Yarn as the package manager, and we'll use React for UI template and TypeScript for flavor. And that should be it. Now move to our project, so Docker app, and make sure you are in a project. Now we'll quickly add a dev dependency to add the Tauri apps CLI. So we have our apps CLI added, and for now we can just minimize our terminal. To our project, the generated project, we have src where we'll add our React part, src Tauri where we'll add our Tauri commands to add our Docker commands. Now move to cargo toml file, and here we'll add our dependencies. So let's quickly add our dependencies. We need Bolat for Docker commands, and then we need Tokyo for async programming with version latest features as full, and then we need future util with latest version, and then we need anyhow and this error for error handling. So once we add all of our dependencies, make sure you are able to build your project, and then we move to our src librs where we'll add our commands. Let's remove the default greet command. Now before we add our Tauri commands, we need a few structs and a bit of error handling. For that, move to the project and here add a payload rs and an error rs. So in payload rs, we'll add a couple of structs that we need. So pub struct container, and similarly pub struct image, and here we'll just derive serialize, deserialize, debug. Same we need for container, and then we need is pub name as option of string, and pub status option string, pub state, which is the current state, as option string, and then we need pub ports option of vector of string. Similarly, we need pub repo tag as string and pub size as i64. Now, there are tons of properties that we get from our dependency for container and images. We'll see in a minute when we extract those details. But to me, showing on a minimal UI, these properties are more than enough. Where we show the name, status, state, ports, we can also build URLs and whatnot. But I'll just stick with these. And for images, we'll just stick with repo tag and the size. And similarly, we need some error handling. For that, we need command error with derive, serialize, deserialize, and debug. And then we need docker error, pass the string, and unexpected error, again pass the string, and on top we'll add error and unexpected error, and similarly error docker API error, so we can handle for both kinds of errors. Now with our error handling up and ready, now let's move to librs where we'll add our commands. Now first we add an app state which will pass along. So an app state with docker, and we'll just pass this app state all the way. So for that we'll just do manage and app state, and here we'll just do docker, and we'll just do docker connect with local defaults. And there are tons of other options that you can try. This would be connecting using the local machine connection with default arguments. Now if you want to connect with HTTP, then you have connect with HTTP, you have connect with HTTP defaults, and tons of other options that you can explore, but I'll just connect with local defaults. Now this will be passed as an state to all of our commands, where we list the containers, remove the containers, add or do any operation with the docker that we have. So let's say first of all we have a list containers command. So async fn list containers, and we pass the state and lifetime and app state, and then we return a vector of, actually a result of vector of container or command error, and then we'll just do is let docker and state docker, we get the docker, and then let's get the containers. So we'll just do let containers docker dot list containers sum, and then we have to pass on list containers options. So list containers options string, and the options that we pass is all, yes we need all, and everything else as default, not the cursor default but default. And here the other properties that you guys can set is limit how many containers you want to display, size, and also filters if any, but I'll just stick with all that returns all containers. And then here we'll just await and map error, and we'll just do is command error docker error and pass e dot to string, and then we can just do is okay of containers into iter and map, we get each item, and then we create our container object, where name as item dot names dot and then and name, and we just pick the first name. So because there are names returned from the API, or the dependency that we are using is vector of strings, but we just pick the first name, and map name and name dot strip prefix. And because the names start by default with slash, so we'll split the slash, and unwrap or names dot to on. So we have our name, and here just in the end let's do collect, so this error goes away. So we have our names, and similarly we'll have status, which is just as simple as item.status, and then we have state, which is again as simple as item.state, and then we have is ports, and here we'll just do is item.ports.map and port, and here we do is ports dot into iter dot filter map and port, because we just need IP, let's say. So port dot IP, because there is public port, there is private port, and then there is IP. So let's say for now we just display the IP and collect it. So there you go, all the details are fetched, and we return a vector of containers. So this is our first Tauri command. So let's add Tauri command, and let's add it in the list, which is right here. Now let's add the second Tauri command. Now similarly, the second command we have is list images. So list images state, and state again lifetime and app state, and here we return a result vector of image and or the command error that we have. And similarly we just do let docker and state.docker, just borrow it, and again extract the images. So images docker list images some list image options and string, and again what we do is all as true, and default So again, if we see what else options that we have is all digits or filters that we can pass, but we'll just pass all to extract literally all the images. Wait map error and e command error docker error e dot to string, and we get our images. Then we just do is iter on images into iter and map. We extract the item and then build our image, and at the end let's put collect, so this error goes away. And we have repo tag. Again, repo tags can be many, so we'll just pick the first one, unwrap or, and new to owned, and similarly we pick size as well, which is just item.size. Now there are tons of other properties that we can get as well. As you guys can see, created, repo tags, size, shared size, virtual size, labels, containers, manifest, but we'll just extract a couple of properties for now. And this is our list images Tauri command, so let's add it. Now the next one we have is emit logs, where we'll use channels, Tauri channels, to emit out logs. So fn emit logs and state and app state, and then we have name as str, which pass which container, on event as channel of string, and make sure we are using Tauri IPC channel. And then we just return result of unit or command error, and Tauri command. Actually, we'll add this at the end. Now let docker is equals to n state docker, and let options as some log options with string, and so std out as true. Yes, we want that. Std error as true, and tail as all. Parse unwrap. Now other than that, we'll just stick with defaults, but let's see what are the other options we got. We can follow for an finite stream, like all the logs, and then since from here until, we can have all of this timestamps, or tell to specify all. So once we have our log options, we'll just talk to the stream. So log stream and docker logs, pass the name of the container and pass the options, and then we do a while let some log result is equals to log stream dot next dot await. And what we do is we match our log result, and if we get an OK, then log, and if we get an error, then we do is we return error, command error, docker error, and we can format, and we can just say failed to fetch logs, and we can tell the reason. So that's how we can do the handling. And at the end, we can just return OK of unit. Now once we have our log, what we can do is we can send out. So we can just do on event send and emit the log. So log dot to string, and we can just map the error. And what we can do here is command error and unexpected error, because this is not a docker error, this is an unexpected error. And we can just do is fail to send log, or even we can do is fail to emit log. So that's our emitting the logs. Again, a Tauri command, emit logs, and there we go. Now all our major commands like docker ps, docker images, emit logs is done. Next we'll add now is remove image, kill container, stop container, and of course create container. So let's add create container, async fn create container. This would just create a container and start it for us. So Tauri command and state lifetime and app state, and image as string, where we'll pass the image repo and tag, and result as unit or command error, So now let's add docker state and borrow the docker, and then config, where we have to pass image as some image, and similarly everything else as default. And let's check what we have here. We have image, volumes, health check, command, environment variables, whatever you want to pass. You can just expose ports, everything that you need to pass you can pass to your containers. For now I'll just stick with image, but you can just look at the ease or the things that we can build with this. Like we can literally create our own UI, a complete project on top of this. So, and then we have let response docker create container, and if you want to pass any name of your container platform you can. Otherwise, just like me, you can just pass none create container options string and config, which we just add for the image, await map error and e command error docker error format failed to create container, and here we can just pass on our error, and then we'll just start the container. So docker dot start container and string let's remove this from Saturday. We need the primitive string and response dot id start this one and none, and in the response we get warnings and the id, so we just use id to start, await map error in case any error, then we want to map error and e command error docker error format and failed to start container. Now as you can see with our custom error handling, how are we on the ease to map the error and expose it in a nice way. So that's why I added custom error handling today. Print, and once we can log or print. So I'll just state with print container started, let's say, and then an OK of unit. So this is our create container ready. So let's make it part of our generate handlers. Similarly, now let's move to the next one. Now let's add remove image. So async fn remove image, and we pass the state as state and lifetime app state and image as slice string and return unit of command error and let docker and state dot docker and options. So remove image options. Do we want to force remove? Yes. And default and docker dot remove image, pass the image and some options. We can also pass none, but because we have our options, so let's pass it, and then a none for our credentials. So if you have any credentials, then make sure to pass it, await map error and e command error docker error format and failed to remove image. So we have our image and error, name or image and error, and we get our Docker image removed and return OK of unit. Now let's make this part of our commands. So add Tauri command, remove image, and similarly now let's add stop container, and we pass the app state and name. Let's call this name, and again this returns the same unit of command error, and let Docker borrow the Docker from state, and let options stop container options, so timeout as 10 seconds. So basically it will wait for 10 seconds before forcefully stopping the container. So this is a property that we get here in the options, and then we can just do simply docker.stop container, pass the name, pass some options, and then we await and map the error, command error, docker error, format, failed to stop container, and name error. So name and error, or and just go ahead and OK off unit. So this is our stop container. Let's make it a Tauri command, and similarly let's add one more, which is kill container. So let's copy this and paste it here, and we'll just name this as kill container and add in the list. Now let's have our options. So as you can see, kill container options has a signal, and which is will just give sick kill to forcefully kill. So pass the options and name this as kill container. So we have our options, kill container and fail to kill container, and that's pretty much all that we need difference here. So let's, okay, we have kill container already. Now similarly we can add for volumes as well, because if you look at it, like the Docker thing that we have has things for volume as well. So let's say create volume, or we have, you know, inspect volume, list volumes, prune volumes, or even tons of other information like, you know, info, attach container, build images, and you know, all those stuff, client version. So for this video specifically, I'll just stick with these commands, which is list containers, list images, emit logs, create container, remove image, stop container, and kill container, which is, I guess, 7 or 8 commands and enough for the video. But I'll highly recommend you guys explore through this whole dependency that we have. It's pretty awesome. We have got tons of commands that we can work with, we can build on top of, and make sure you go along and follow it and then build, like for example, commands like remove container or pause container, stop, we have already implemented. Start container you can implement separately as well. I've made it part of create container, but you can implement separately as well. So these are all the things that you can build on top of this. And now these are all the commands that we'll stick with. So now let's move to the React side where we'll add our UI. Now enough of the commands, and before we move to our UI and start adding our commands and the whole UI, we'll be needing icons today because we have tons of commands, and to better visualize those commands and make it more pleasing, we will add some icons. So I won't be manually adding icons, but instead we'll use a dependency. So open your terminal and then move to your Docker app and run this command to add React icons. And as you can see, we have it added. Now we'll start using it. So move to your project explorer and move to app tsx and app css. Just clean it up because we'll just code literally everything on our own. Now as we start working on our React side for our front end of our Docker app, I just wanted to communicate that we'll follow a component based approach today, where we'll build different components because we'll add a navigation bar to switch between containers, images, and later you guys can also add volumes there. And along with that, we'll also add a bit more terminal style UI for displaying the logs, and we have list view as well. So for that, move to the project and in the src add a component, and inside add a container list, image list, navigation bar, terminal, and for all add separate css files. So we'll start bottom up. So move to container and let's add the terminal first. Sorry. Yeah. So let's add our terminal UI interface, terminal props, logs, and string, and our functional component, terminal react fc, terminal props, and logs. So a pretty basic component. Return div and class name as terminal, h3, class name as terminal title, logs window, and div class name as terminal logs, and logs.map, and log index, then we'll just do a pre key as index, and class name as log9, log line, and here we have our log. Now we'll just manage the scroll. So const terminal ref, use ref, and html div element null, use effect, and dependency on logs. So what we do here is if terminal ref.current, terminal ref.current.scroll to top, terminal ref.current.scroll height, and right here in ref we'll just do is terminal ref. That's pretty much it for our UI. So export default terminal, and let's add our css for this nice and clean component that we have. Move to terminal css. So pretty straightforward. I just paused and add the css. We have terminal, terminal title, terminal logs, and terminal line. You guys can pause the screen and add this css. as I scroll, nice and slow. And now let's move to image list. Now here we have our interface image, id as string, repo tag as string, and size as string. And then we have our component, image list, react, fc, const images, set images, and use state, image array, and then we have fetch images, async, and this will invoke our Tauri command. So const fetched images and image array, await, and invoke the Tauri command, which is list images, and set images as fetched images. Then catch error and console.error failed to fetch images, error. And then we have is handle remove, our remove image command. Async, pass the id as string, actually we'll pass the tag, and try catch error, error, error removing images, and error. Right here we'll just wait, invoke remove image, and pass let's see the parameter, the argument, move to main lib, and here it was remove image, requires image, so we'll just pass image as tag. And once we have removed, we'll just do fetch images. And next one is handle run, so const handle run, async, tag string, try catch error, console error, error running image, and here we can just display the error. So let's make this error, and await, invoke create container, and also pass the argument. So create has an argument which is image, and we will just run. And then we have use effect that would just on mount fetch images. Now let's add the UI, so return div and h2 last name as title, and images. Then we have div, last name as image list, and images map image, and right here we have div and key as image.id and last name as image item, and right here we have div and an h3 that says last name as image name, image.repo tag, and p that says size, and size image.size. So we have our image, and similarly now we'll have image actions. So div last name as image actions and button, and the first button has a class name as action button run and an on click which triggers handle run image.repotech run button, and here we have fa play to get the icon. So we have our first button and the name as run. Now similarly we have our other buttons, so copy this and button as remove, handle remove, repo tag, and fa trash, which is a trash icon for remove. That's probably it for our button commands, and finally we export the image list, and here we import our image list css, move to image list css, and here let's add css. So I just quickly pause and add this css. Pretty straightforward for image list, image item, image name, image actions, and then action button. We have run, we have remove, and we have css for both of these. So after image list, now let's move to container list. So let's start with container list interface, container, and id is string, name as string, status as string, and const container list, again a functional component, export default, and const containers, set containers, use state, containers array, And similarly, const logs, set logs, use state, string, array, and the array, const show logs, set show logs, use state, boolean, and set to false. Now let's fetch containers. Async try catch error console dot error failed to fetch containers error, and here we have const fetched containers container array await invoke and list containers, set containers as fetched containers. This is fetch containers. Now we have handle kill async text string try catch error console error fail to kill container, and here we'll just do await invoke kill container and pass name as tag and fetch containers. Similarly, we have handle stop, so let's add it. So pretty straightforward again, handle stop, and now let's add logs. So handle logs async name string, this one would require channel catch error fail to fetch logs, and const on event new channel and string, because we accept and pass string on event on message and set logs previous logs and previous will go on the top. And new ones will append afterwards. After that, we'll just await invoke emit log and pass name as name and on event as on event and set show logs as true. So we have our handle logs as well, and finally const. Actually all the commands are done. Now let's fetch it, use effect on mount and deps as empty and fetch containers. Now let's quickly add the UI. So we'll just do is return and div last name as container list wrapper and h2 that says containers and last name as title and and then we have another div that says last name as container list. This is for the CSS, and containers.map and container div. So let's say key as container ID and last name as container item and div h3 that says last name as container name status container status and state as container state. Okay, we should add state as well. So container state. And now we have our actions. So div last name container actions, just like image actions, button. Actually, we can copy buttons. So image list, go all the way down, copy one button, move here, and this is action button stop. So we'll just call handle stop and pass container name, and we can name this as FA stop, and the button is stop. Similarly, another one that we have is kill and FA kill. Is there kick or kick maybe? Kill, or let's use pause. So FA pause maybe. Okay. And then after kill, we have handle kill here. So kill we have. Finally, we have logs. So logs and logs and FA terminal. So we have everything that we want. And now let's put the show logs. So show logs, when it's set to true, we want div last name as logs modal and div last name as logs modal content and button last name as close button. So basically we want to display logs in a terminal UI, which will be modal. So close button and on click we'll just set logs as empty and set show logs as false, and here we can have close and terminal as logs and pass the logs. So we have our container list as well. Let's remove this, move to CSS. Again, CSS pretty easy and straightforward. I just paused and added this. So make sure as I scroll through, you guys can pause the screen, add this, or if you need CSS, then drop a comment. I'll drop the link to my GitHub where you can find the CSS for this. And now let's finally move to our nav bar. So navigation bar. And here we want to have a tabs view. So interface, navigation bar props, active tab, containers, images, set active tab, and tab containers or images white, and basic functional component again, navigation bar react fc, navigation bar props, and active tab, set active tab, export default navigation bar. In container list we forgot one line, which is getting our CSS here. Similarly in navigation bar we'll just add navigation bar CSS. Return, we don't need any states here. Div last name as navbar, and another div with last name as navbar logo, and f8 docker, and we can also set the size, let's say 30, and h1. So here the name, let's say I name this as docker manager, and then we have button with last name tab, and here active tab, containers, active, and on click we set active tab to containers, and here we have containers, and similarly we'll do for buttons. So let's copy the buttons part, containers part, and do for buttons. So just paste the same, and here tab images, and images. So we have our things set up now in place in the navigation bar. Let's move to navbar CSS, which is this one. So again, pretty straightforward. I just paused and added this basic CSS for navbar. You guys can paste it, or pause it and write along. Now finally move to app.tsx, and this one is pretty straightforward. First let's add css and const app react fc export default app const active tab set active tab use state and containers or images, and start with containers and return div class name as app, and then we use our navigation bar, the component that we just add, active tab as active tab, and set active tab as set active tab, and div class name as content, and active tab containers. If active tab is containers, then just display container list or display image list. That's for our app. Similarly, go to app css and let's add the css. Again, pretty straightforward, very pretty basic. Just add the css and you guys can copy and or pause it and edit. So now we have our UI ready, we have our commands ready. Let's for the first time go ahead and run our application. So let's clear this, and we do is yarn Tauri dev. Here you go, the first look of our Docker Manager desktop application that we built with Rust and React. It's bare minimum for this video. We have containers and images, but there are endless possibilities that we can build on top of this tool and make it simply outstanding. So as you can see, we have our containers, images, navbar UI, and we have our containers which are in any of the state right now on my machine, either killed or stopped, and we have logs as well, which we'll see in a minute. Then we have our images. Now these are the different images that are currently on my machine pulled previously, so we can use these images and basically work with them. So let's say I want to remove any of these images. Maybe let's say I want to remove ARM64 v8 MySQL latest, and I press remove, and there you go, the image is gone. Similarly, let's say I want to run this Amazon image. I press run, and we go to our containers UI, and as you can see, there is this container which started like 9 seconds ago but exited because we didn't provide it any config or anything. We just started it. And similarly, we have our own commands like kill, stop, or even logs. So let's say I want to check the logs for this Nginx log generator. I click this, and there you go, our logs UI, nice and clean terminal UI as I told you guys, and we have all of our logs. Now close it. So we have all the commands that we can work with: stop a container, kill a container, and pretty much do everything. Now similarly, let's say I have a Redis container up just 5 seconds ago on my machine, and it's currently in running state. But let's say if I press stop, as you can see, it says less than a second ago that this container exited. Similarly, we can also check the logs for this. So I press Redis container logs, and there you go, we have logs for our Redis container. So we can make it more basically better. We can enhance the UI, we can add more commands, because as you can see right now we have stop kill, but we don't have pause, start, remove container. So we can add all of those commands and make this UI more and more enhanced. So let me know down in the comments what do you guys think about this, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.